Hello, my name is Debbie. I'm Owlandgator Stitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 80. This is a video mainly about cross stitch, sometimes about what I'm reading and watching and life thrown in. If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope you like what you see and you click on that subscribe button. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I love the community, and that's why I keep on doing these Flosstube videos. So today is Wednesday, December 31st, 2025. So Happy New Year. I hope that everyone has had a good holiday season, however you choose to celebrate or not. I'll get into what I did for the holidays coming up at the end, but I just got back from dropping off my brother and his family at the airport. So I thought this would be a great time to film a video and to ring out the new year. So with that, I am just going to jump in and start showing you what I have worked on. So the first thing is one, and just before I start showing everything, those of you who are longtime viewers know I play a lot of games on Facebook. I have scaled back in the past year or so. It's just getting a little bit overwhelming, but I still play some. And my belief is that the games should help motivate us to stitch and maybe pull out something we haven't worked in a while. But when it starts to feel an obligation, and not a sense of community, that's when I sort of start pulling back from certain games. So having said that, one of the groups I am in, which many of you are in as well, is Full Coverage Fanatics. And Kim Hollenbach is one of the admins of that group. And she created something called Gridiron Grind, which is based on U.S. football. So I had picked two teams, one the Florida Gators, their season is long over, and the second is the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they have one more game left in the season, and when I originally started this, I thought that was going to be the end of it because the Jags have not been doing very well for the past couple of years. But after a disastrous loss a couple months ago, where they epitomized let's snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. That game, something must have happened in the locker room afterwards because they have rallied, and I don't think they've lost a game since then. They've had some close ones, and they've had some tough ones, and they have still managed to pull all of them off. So this past weekend, for example, they played the Indianapolis Colts. The Jaguars had already clinched a spot in the playoffs, but now they're trying to win the division, and the Colts also has something to play for. And so it was going to be a tough game, and Jacksonville started down a little bit, and then they came back up. So this is not really a football channel, so I'm going to show you what I worked on for Gridiron Grind. So this is the piece I have picked, and let me actually show you a photo of it. It is two swans. It's in the pond, but I think I would say on the pond. But anyhow, the artist is Alexandra Gavrilova, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. So this is a regular size, regular color. And here is where I am. So I don't know exactly how many stitches I've put in the past month because my last video was towards the end of November. But I basically I'm pulling colors from the edge here, and then just as they are, appear on, this is actually 2 pages. It's like one page probably stops here. It's the bottom of the pattern and then goes up. So basically that hydrangea bush is now, there may be a stitch or two that I need to fill in, but it is basically done, as well as I don't even know what this yellow one is, but that one's getting close to completion as well. And then a little bit more on the greenery down here. There's some little flowers in there. You can see some like yellow speckles in there. So I'm almost done with these 2 pages. I don't, I'm using Pattern Keeper, so I don't adhere strictly, but it just gives me a way to choose colors. So I'm not doing the strict typewriter method. I tend to do it column by column and pick colors that if I see a lot of that color to go, so I can get some good amount of stitches done with that one color, and then I'll go back and pick up one that maybe is a stitch that I missed before or just doesn't have a lot of color in this section. So anyhow, this has been a really fun stitch. This was one that I had not pulled out much before I started this, so I've already done like 200% more than I had done when I started this. So I'm really excited about that. Okay. So I also this month have wanted, in November, I tried to touch all of the pieces that I had not touched yet in 2025. I have almost 80 whips, so while I try and make an effort to, throughout the year, work on them, some of them inevitably don't get the love that they need. But in November, because I was traveling and had other things I was doing, I was unable to achieve that goal. So I just went and pulled out a few more of those. So one of those was Simple Little Big Love. This is charted by Alessandra Adelaide Designs, or actually designed by her. And I am doing this on its, I think it's either 28 or 32 count. I don't know who the fabric diary is. I picked this up. It was mailed to me during the pandemic from what was then called Brick City, now called the Common Threaded Stitcher. And they sell on the bolt. So I got this cut to the correct size, but I don't really have a lot of information beyond that. And yep, that's where I am. So I basically went down. So here, I'll show you the whole thing, and then I'll fold it a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. So what I ended up doing was I did the tree trunk here. None of the tree trunk had been done before. And then some of the, under the birdie, some of the swirls and stuff. So just to try and fill it in. I know I have some mistakes somewhere, so I was trying to make sure that wherever I was counting off of was correct. Like, I don't know if there's mistakes in these swirls or whatever. So it's not a perfectly symmetrical pattern as designed, so it's okay if I don't get it done perfectly symmetrical. It's just as long as I don't end up with a heart that sort of, you know, has like 3 bumps on it or something. I'll be good. Okay. Okay. And I think of the ones that I had not finished, I have a couple others, but I put in so few stitches that I didn't bother to bring them over here. All right, then, but I did touch them. I was very excited about that. All right, so then I had a new start, and I'm just trying to find the cover photo for you, which I did not pull everything out before I started filming, and that was probably my downfall. Anyhow, the next one I started, here we go, was Cozy Book Nook, Cozy Winter Book Nook. This is artwork by Rose Kahn, charted by Pain Free Crafts. When Rose Kahn moved over to Pain Free Crafts, this was one of the first ones that was charted, and I immediately went out and bought it. But it was like a year and a half ago, and I just never got the incentive. It is a fairly large piece. It is now my second largest one, at clocking in a little bit over 500,000 stitches. So I decided to start this one now because Beth, the Steadfast Stitcher, was her birthday in December, and so every year she sort of picks a theme, and so this year it was books. She runs the Facebook group Crafts and Books, and so I decided to jump in. I always jump in every year, and so it gives me an excuse to start things that are in my stash, and this certainly was. So I put in about 1,400 stitches on this, and now I'm gonna try and find, here's where I am. So really not much to see at this point. This is basically a bit of ceiling, and then there's some sort of sash or something. So start coming down. So a good start, but obviously a long way to go. But there's kitties and books and a fireplace and inside, which means I don't have to go outside in the snow. So lots of things that I love about this pattern. So thank you, Beth, for giving me an excuse to start this one that has been sitting there for over a year and a half. And somehow I have the world's largest project bag for this, and I can't shove everything back in here. Okay, there we go. All right. The next one is one that I started in January of this year, 2025. And so but after I got a really good start on it, and then I did not pull it out again. So I decided I probably should pull it out one more time this year. So this is Celtic Winter by Lavender and Lace. So I think many of you are familiar with this one. I am not doing any sort of color conversion or anything like that. I am just doing it as it's called for. So I am doing this on a 28 count Lugana from Live or Die in LA. Colorway is Winter in My Heart. So here's where the whole thing, and basically what I did was I had done quite a bit of that top line already, pulled it over, Pulled it over, did part of this, I don't even know what this is, like decorative motif, and then did some of the stuff around, like, so the letters are in the negative space. I did a little bit of that. This is not, this, I started in the upper right-hand corner, which is not normally where I start, but it was the easiest place to start on this one, given the way it's designed, because this is not the top left-hand corner. In the design, this goes down, and then the dress pops out at the bottom. So it crosses over on top of the line. So I wanted to make sure that I was starting in the correct place on this fabric. It's a lovely fabric. And this pattern, I'm so used to these huge fancy ladies. And this one, relatively speaking, is not as nearly as big as some of them. I'm sure when I get into the dress, I will not feel that way. But right now, there's a lot of empty space. It's not bad. Okay. The next one I have to show you is my oldest project. This is Old World Map, charted by Artisy. So that's what it looks like. And it's not going to be a lot to see. I still have it in the Q-snap. But I had, so a lot of this over here I'd already done where it's densely stitched. But then I sort of pulled down and started working, just pulling out colors that dominated this and started working on them. So pulled in just to give it a little bit of framework. And then so I do some more work on this next month, and I do have plans to work on this next month. I can start picking out some of the small areas. I like to do some of the colors that are more predominant in a section. And that way, when I get to some of those ninja stitches or areas where there's, a couple here, a couple there, that there's something to anchor my floss to and to count off from. So that is Old World Map. And this is definitely one of those, and Evening Romance, which is the next one I'm going to show. This is definitely one of those that when you're really up close to it, it doesn't look great, but when you pull it back, it does. I mean, you can start to see like the figures coming in, here, like that's, obviously it's chopped off by the Q-snap, but that's someone's leg, and it does look really good from afar, but up close, like the eyes are each like one stitch, because it is so detailed. This is, it's, Artisy calls it large, but their scaling is very different than, say, Heaven and Earth Designs. So they're large. This is about, I think, 246,000 stitches. So it's still quite large, but that's like an average height, I feel like. So it's not overwhelming. I can see that getting done in my lifetime. All right, now this is the piece that is going to be my focus in my full coverage focus to finish in 2026. That's Evening Romance. So I was giving myself a little jump on this. So this is charted also by Artisy, and the artwork is Mark. I don't know if it's Keith Lee. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name, but lovely little winter seam. And I do have this one out of the Q-snap because I needed to, after I finished my last stitching session on this, I knew I was going to move the Q-snap. So overall, here is the project. And then I was working down in this section. So carriage is not quite done, but it's coming in quite nicely. And then I was doing a lot of like the snow and stuff down here. One thing I find, interesting as you're getting into this, and I'm getting into this and doing it, is the colors that they have in the snow. I can't remember if this is a mixture of things, but there's, I think, like 407 and 3853 and 3856, sort of this sort of yellowy oranges colors, which are not ones that I usually see with snow. Usually you see like the pale blues, pale grays, pinks maybe, obviously white, but not that. But when you look at the overall picture, it makes a lot of sense because it's reflecting the sunset, and the sunset is all those glorious colors. So it's been sort of interesting seeing how the colors are getting pulled, and how when the whole thing will be done, how it will look. So very excited to work on this. I'm going to obviously be moving over to this section, so definitely I'll be working on getting that the man in the carriage and the horse done so that you can see that detail in it. I love watching those details emerge. So that is Evening Romance. And you will be seeing this in all my videos because I intend to do, I think my calculation, if I did it correctly, was I need to do 3,000 a month in order to finish it in 2026. I probably will do more than that. It may be up to 4,000 every month. just to give it that little extra push. And that way, for some reason, I have a month where I can't get to it, or I don't get to it enough, I will still be able to be on target to finish it in 2026. It's my evening stitch. I sit there when I watch TV, and it's just very relaxing for me. Okay, now the piece, I really, once I finished the pieces that I had not touched yet, and there were like 3 or 4 of them, I really wanted December to be, because I was getting really burnt out from some of my games. So in a lot of cases, I kind of stepped back. I said, let me see how I feel in December. Let me step back and just work on what I want to work on and not have any prompts drive anything. And when I sat back and thought about it, now there were some like Celtic Winter, which I put in about 400 stitches. It was great to do that. But it was like that was a day of like pre-dinner stitching. But what I really, really, really wanted to work on was my chatelaine. And I have honestly no idea which direction this picture goes at this point. It keeps getting detached from the pattern. It literally is like, you can hear it, it's a photograph. I think this elbow goes at the top. But that's what it is. This is currently my only chatelaine as a whip, and I have not finished any. And this is done on a 32 count Lugana colorway cloud, again from Brick City. So I don't know the dyer. So here is everything that I have done. I think most of you are familiar with chatelaines. I'm trying to think which way goes better. Most of you are familiar with chatelaines. So you know there are tons of specialty stitches. It is not a fast stitch. I'm okay with that. I really wanted to enjoy this process. So what I had done up until that point, so this center square up until these little things here, those are windmills. It will be much clearer, they're windmills, once the beads are done, which I will do at the very end, because the beads are what sort of make the little blades on, I guess they're called blades, on the windmills. So all I had left, or I thought all I had left, if I get really close, you can see some of the, like the green stuff there. Little grass. They're straight stitches, quick, easy. I knew it was done in a DMC, and I just remember the last time I did it, I said, I know I have to do it, but I was kind of, I need, whatever I was doing, I'm like, I need to move on. I'll come back to it. Let me tell you that seagrass has been, or whatever it is, not seagrass, but reeds or whatever, have been the bane of my existence. Not because of the actual stitching, but everything else. One, I knew I had to come back to it. I really had the previous time wanted to say, I am done with all the stuff around that particular block with all the tulips and crocuses, and that was still there. Then I'm looking at the pattern, and if you've ever done a chatelaine, you have to read the instructions very carefully. They're not sort of laid out in the easiest way. And I knew obviously there were a lot of beads that I had to fill in. So I'm reading it, and I kept talking about these star stitches, and I couldn't figure out what they were talking about. Because after the star stitches, it then moved on to the straight stitches for the grass. So I started looking at the pattern more carefully, and there's all this beads going on, and then in between like some of the beads there are the star stitches. So I'm like, okay, great, let me just go ahead and get the star stitches done. So I pulled the color for that, did it, no problem. You can barely honestly see them here. See if I can, if it won't get too blurry if I get up there. It's a very pale gray, and there's beads all around it. So if you don't see the star stitches, I'm okay with that. But then I went to go pull the color for the grass. I am not using the MPIs for this. If it's all calls for MPI, I'm using the DMC equivalent. I went to go pull the DMC equivalent that I had. I don't know if it was Martina's conversion or it was my own conversion that I pulled off the internet, and I went to pull it. I have a huge master set of DMC. When I think I'm running, like if I'm like running low on a color, I write it down. Next time I go to Michael's or something, I pick it up. Somehow did not have that color anywhere. So I like had to skip doing the grass and move on to other things. Finally went to Michael's, picked up the color I needed, and started stitching and put in, I don't know, a couple little things. And the instructions were like, well, if it looks a little broken, whatever. So I had, when I went to the Chatelaine retreat in July this year, I had, there was at the table behind me, someone had completed this. And so I had taken like some good pictures of it. She was a very experienced chatelaine stitcher, and I wanted to have those pictures as reference. And I started looking at it and just make sure that whatever she did reconciles with my understanding of the directions. And her color was totally different than the color I had. And so, I mean, it was like a much deeper green. So then I go and look, and I don't know where I pulled the conversion from again, but I went online to say, okay, let me see if there's another color. And it was. So I hadn't done that many at that point. I pulled out a different color, and so I had to frog what I had done and put them in. So I finally got that finished. I was so happy, but I didn't want to stop. I love this project so much. So I kept going. I'm getting a little tired of holding this up, but I do want to keep showing you. So I did those 4 big motifs in the corner. I did that square, like the bigger outer square with a bunch of little squares. And then I started at the bottom down here. You can see it a little bit there. At that point, I had this in a 12 by 12 Q snap. At the top, it was like just the way I placed it in the Q snap. It was getting a little bit tight, and I knew there were other things I wanted to work on this month, and so I just let it. Yes, I don't know why I keep doing that. Um, I just keep. I just decided let it go. In between all those squares, so these are about 3 by 3 squares. The whole way around, they're satin stitches. And I made the decision right now, I don't have the right scroll bars for this. And I'm a little bit hesitant about doing the satin stitches and then possibly putting my Q-snap over the satin stitches and messing them up. I always, when I have Q-snaps on, I always put felt beneath, so I'm not worried about cross stitches. I know some people feel like their stitches will get flat. I'm not so worried about that, but I am worried about pulling my satin stitches, because I did have a little bit of problem even without having anything on it on some of like these tulips and stuff down here, that some of the stitches they're also satin stitched, and they're not like huge long satin stitches. They are maybe, this is a 32 count, so going over 6 holes, so not very far at all. 3 stitches, 3 like what would be a normal cross stitch, and yet they were still like, even though I had tucked everything, they were still starting to come out a little bit at times. So I really wanted to make sure that whenever I do it, I have this in the proper thing. So if anyone knows where to get high quality scroll bars, and I think this is, well, they would have to be about 36 inches. I think this fabric is a little bit shorter than that, but obviously 36 inches to make sure I can encompass it. And a U.S. source, let me know. I'm willing to pay for a good scroll bars. So anyhow, that is where I am on my chatelaine. And it would kind of made me a little sad to put it away, but I knew life was also, I had a couple of, I did not touch what is really calling me to work on it. I did not touch even all of those. But I was very happy to have a chance to work on my chatelaine, and I was a little bit sad to put it away, but I also knew I was going to get distracted by other things, whether it was football or family or things like that. And so it wasn't going to get the love that it needed. So I said, okay, just take it off, put it away, and I will come back to it hopefully soon. Okay, so those are all the projects I have to show you. So not as many as a lot of times I do, but I'm hoping that you enjoyed seeing some of the progress, because I did get some really good progress, especially like the 3,000 stitches on Evening Romance. The chatelaine, the way following all the rules of the cross stitch games, got over 2,000 stitches. There were also 4 Jessica stitches, and thank you to Katie, who is one of the teachers at the Chatelaine Retreat, who did such a good job that even though I had been 6 months since I had done one of those Jessica stitches, I remembered all of the tricks that she taught us, and I was able to do them without frogging, as long as I remembered. So I do want to talk about my plans. I know I did my previous plans video, but I I made I know I was also a bit rambly. Now I'm starting to be rambly again. In that last video, I was distracted by cats and birds and husband and all that kind of stuff. And things have also changed a little bit. So I am participating in Fandom Stitching Central. I think it was a little bit touch or go for me whether or not I was going to continue to participate in that. They have moved over to Discord, which I don't have a problem using Discord, but it's just the way they were asking us to set everything up. It was just different than I was used to, and I think I've got it figured out now. But what I'm really using that for is they've got one of the challenges they call 26 in 2026. So you pick 26 projects, and if you don't have 26 projects, you don't have to do that many. But the idea is pick 26 or up to 26 projects and try and get at least 2026 stitches in them over the course of the year. And they have ways that you can kind of, I don't want to say cheat because it's allowed, but like if you have one of those projects and then there's a prompt in another one of their things, you can double dip basically the stitches. So, and if you've already done your 2000 stitches, you can continue to use that project. So like Evening Romance is one of those projects. And so I obviously, if I'm trying to get between 3,000 and 4,000 stitches in that a month, I'm going to finish the 2026 stitches really quickly, but I can keep using that for their other prompts. So what I have done is, so I picked my 26 projects, and you don't even have to pick the 26. You need just one to start the challenge. But I found it a really good motivator this year for me to pick up and get some good progress on some of my bigger pieces. So what I did this time, so I've written them all on my thing. This I'm not going to be showing to you every month. I'm not talented enough to write and edit and all of that on the camera. But I basically lean this, so I stitch in the opposite direction so I can watch my TV, which is that black thing behind me. And I just lean it like against the bottom of the table there. So it's not blocking the TV, but it's within my sight line. And it just sort of reminds me of what's on this list. And I also had to decide what I wanted to put on this list. And so what I ended up doing was putting all of my full coverages except one. The one that got left out was my Stars Hollow one. I love that one, but it's a smaller full coverage, and the way that I am stitched, not the way I'm stitching on it, but just how I pull it out, it doesn't feel the same as my other full coverages. So I made a decision. I still will work on it. I still love it. It's just not on this list. And then I picked a couple others that are going to be focused, which I'll show you. So like Queen of Freedom, Stars Bright. And then I said, okay, what else do I want to put on here? And I ended up saying, I'm going to, of some of my favorite designers, I'm going to, where I have multiple of that designer, I'm going to pick one of those and put it on there. So for example, I have Baby Animals, which is the blue flower. I have at least two other whips by her, but Baby Animals is the one I wanted to really focus on. Celtic Winter, again, with lavender and lace. And let's see, Morning Glory Manor, I actually only have one by Erin Elizabeth, but I love that project. The way the colors and the fabric are going together, it just makes me happy to stitch on it. So I said I'll be happy to put 2,000 stitches in that in 2026. Ellesmore Cottage, that's Rosewood Manor. Promises of Spring, Cottage Garden Samplings, part of the Songbird series. Stars Bright by Lindy Stitches, love that one. It's also my oldest non-full coverage whip. So I am, and it was Doing Your Dominion in 2020. It was it was a start there. So I want to get back, and I definitely will keep going on that one to get it done. And then Water Goddess by Joan Elliott. The only two that I have on this list that are not full coverage that I have by more than one designer is my chatelaines. So Evening Romance is on here because I want to give an excuse to do it. And then I have a new start. I am participating in the Summer Garden Mystery 18 Sal. So when Chatelaine started to do this, she would do a like mystery stitch alongs, and these things were huge. I don't know how long she expected people to work on, how long the mystery would take, but they were large. And I don't have a cover photo for it because it was a mystery. And so the way that the pattern is, there is no cover photo. So I can't show that to you. But I will show you the fabric I have. So this is 28 count Vinca, I think that's how you say it, by Oak Crown Studios. So this has got like beehives and some really lovely like yellows and colors that I think will pop off of this really well. So I am starting that, and I really should find a photo to be able to show you guys how this, what it actually looks like. Because it's going to be a long time before you actually see what it is if I just keep doing that. Obviously, I ordered the material pack from European Cross Stitch in April. And I know it takes, I complained about this a lot in my last video. It can take a while to get it if you include the Glorianas, and I did. And I had not gotten it, but 2 days ago I got the shipping notification, so I'm not going to get it. I'm sure it won't arrive today, but I should get it within the first week of January or so, so I'll be very excited to be joining in on that fun. I have no intention of completing it within a year. This thing is like 365 by 365 with all the specialty stitches and all the glory that comes in a chatelaine, but I am very much looking forward to sinking my teeth and every month getting some really good progress on that. So that is the only designer chatelaine that I have 2 non-full coverage whips in that. Okay. Another thing that is really guiding me is whip go. So I talked about this before. I don't make a whip go board ahead of time. Literally, Jessie is spinning her wheel, calling 2 numbers, and I go through my stack of cards that I have and pull out the 2 numbers. So she calls 2, so I go, and it's the second card, and it's when I stitch on something, and it's just index cards. The card goes to the back. So the last project that I stitched on was Old World Maps. So that's at the bottom of the pack. And it's not that I'm doing it that order. It's just that is the order in which I will, it just lets me know like, oh, I haven't worked on this in a while. Maybe let's pull it out and work on it. So I think the numbers are 2 and 7. So number 2. And I literally go through, and the first time I see the numbers is when I go through. So I don't know what, I think this was on the 24th that normally she does it on the 25th, but because that was Christmas Day, I believe she did it on the 24th. And so anyhow, my number 2 was Fairy Tale Motifs. This is by Stitchy Princess Black, who is based in Ukraine. And this is a horrible printout, so it doesn't look I'm using a very different color fabric than what she suggested, but it is more vibrant than that. So this is 16 count Ada. The color is J. It's by Picture This Plus. I do love this color. It's kind of almost like a periwinkle blue. And here's where I am. So I am basically halfway done with this pattern. And so that top half is done. And then so it will go down onto the bottom half. And one of the reasons I love this pattern so much, I know I mentioned this before, but I'm a Russian speaker, not a native speaker, but I was a Russian major in college. And that sort of girl with a long braid and all that, really that image features a lot in like Russian fairy tales and like their, they have a name. It's Uncle Frost, and I don't know the name in English of what, like the Snow Maiden or something, maybe the way we translate it. But like just that sort of long braid that comes down, it really is featured. And so it makes me like, I really had spent a lot of time looking for a pattern like that. And I was glad that Katerina did this, and I know things are a little bit hard in Ukraine right now, so I am wishing her the best. So that is one of my whip go numbers. My other whip go number happened to be one of the ones that's on my 26 for 2026, so this will be getting quite a bit of time on it. And my whip go is like work on it a day unless there's a reason to work on it more. It's literally just an excuse for me to pick up a project I haven't worked on in a while. So this is Promise of Spring. I keep calling it Promises, but there's only one promise. So that's Hope with that little pretty robin. And I am doing this on, it's a 32 count Lugana from Bestitch Me, colorway Neptune. I don't have a huge amount on this, so I'm very happy to, that's part of the reason why I wanted to pick this one back up. Excuse me. Lose my voice a little bit. So basically I've just done that bottom bit. Again, I start sometimes where it's the easiest place to start without making a mistake. So that's why I started in the bottom left-hand corner. So this will build up. So I'm excited. I may not get my 2026 stitches on this month, but I'm hoping to make really good progress on that. Okay, another one of the games. So I obviously will continue with Two Swans in the Pond charted by Hade, because Jags have a game this weekend, and then they have at least one more game in the playoffs. And boy, like, because I never thought they'd make it, I bumped up the stitch count. So let's go, Trevor. You know, I'm always happy to stitch, and that one, it's in Pattern Keeper, it's easy to stitch, but you know, when I was making my plans, thinking like in advance, that wasn't what I thought I'd be working on, but I'm okay to work on it. So another one of the games in Full Coverage Fanatics is the bingo. So every month they develop a bingo board with prompts on every square. My goal is to get a bingo. So I know everyone's doing it a little bit different, but I'm looking and saying, okay, of my full coverage pieces, what is the easiest way for me to get a line? And when I say easy, I mean, where can I incorporate Evening Romance and Old World Map? Because those are two pieces I'm going to be working on regardless. And so once I find where I can at least get those two in for 1,000 stitches, even though I will certainly do more on Evening Romance, I'm like, where can I go next? And so I went and found my line. So I found the line is, and I'm going to try and remember, white, which actually I'm going to be using Old World Map for that, because there's a lot of white in the ocean and stuff on the globe itself. Well, 3865, but that counts as white. So I'll be doing that. And you have to hit, I think, if you're counting 1,000 stitches. And then I am doing, and then there's something that costs money. And so I said, well, horse costs money. So I'm doing that. Another one I think was like a winter scene. So obviously Evening Romance works for that. And then I had two more that I couldn't fit there. One of it was something that starts with the letter in like JAN for January. So I have one full coverage that starts with an A. So that is Aria by Firelight, charted by Tilton Crafts. So I'm not going to show you where I am right now, but that is my A. So that will get 1,000 stitches. And literally, I am also going through, and similar to WhipGo, I pull out my stack of index cards, figure out which line I want to work on, and then I'm like, okay, I need something that starts with a J, a or an N. So the first full coverage whip I have that meets those requirements, I pull out, and it's an A. And I honestly think it's the only one I have. So it had been at the bottom of the stack. I still will be working on it, but that is that. And then the next one was books. And I have two that come to the top of my head, two full coverages that have books. One is Cozy Winter Book Nook, which I just showed, and because that was towards the bottom of the pile, I went with my other one, which was higher up. And that is Grand Library. So I think many of you are familiar with Grand Library. A very sad beat up picture there. So this is charted by Heaven and Earth Designs, artwork by Amy Stewart, and this is Supersize Max Color. It's my largest whip by far. It's got over 700,000 stitches. I have no intention of saying, oh, I'm going to finish this in my lifetime. I could if this was the only thing I worked on, but I love my project so much. So I did start down in the bottom right corner here, and I've got about 3% done down there. But I felt like I got to a good stopping point. So when I pick it up again, I am going to move up and start working on the romance scene here. And then eventually, if I ever get that done, to move into that center part there. Stitching on the parts that I love the most. But I love, there's very little of this that I don't love. Even if it's a genre that I don't read, it's still like the colors and the images and stuff are wonderful. But I know, like, in my lifetime, what can I realistically stitch? This may not get finished, but it's, for me, it is the process, and I just sort of emptying of the mind and being able to stitch and just sort of be enamored with that. So yeah, and that one lives in this huge tote bag here. So, and I am stitching that on a 25 count. That's the other thing, is that 25 count, I'm doing 1/1 full cross. It's, I wear readers when I stitch. It's still not the easiest. 22 count is my sort of comfort space, and that is 25 count. So I have to be sort of focused, and when I work on that one a little bit more than I do on a 22 count or like 18 or something like that. Okay, so the other two pieces I mentioned briefly to you when I was talking about 2025, but I'll just show the pictures because I have them here. My oldest non-full coverage, Stars Bright by Lindy Stitches. So I want to make some good progress on that. And my plan with these next two I'm showing you is to pull them out every month and give them a few days. I'm not going to commit to like, oh, I'm going to do 4 days or 5 days or something like that. There's too many other things I want to do. But the idea is to make myself consistently pull it out every month and give it a lot of love. And then, so the other one is Queen of Freedom. And I did take this to the retreat in October and got her to sign it. This is one that I, again, just love the image. It is the 250th anniversary of the U.S. independence next year. Whatever that word is that everyone uses. I can never remember it. I would call it the semi-quincentennial, but I don't think that's the word, which means half of 500, which is what 250 is. But I think there's another word that people use that is the appropriate word to use. So I'll work on that. No goal to finish it because I want to be able to enjoy the process of stitching it. So that is all of my whips that I have to show you that I plan to work on. I have definitely one new start, which I showed, which is Summer Garden by Chatelaine. And then I potentially have two other starts that maybe I'll get to them, maybe I won't. I think it really depends, sort of my mood and sort of what else happens. So one of them is Peace on Earth. So this is Leela's Studio. I have started Summer Quaker. I started that as a Sal with Beth, Steph S. Stitcher, and Laura Stitching by the Shore. Laura has made great progress on hers. I haven't seen Beth work on it much recently. And Laura recently finished Spring Quaker, which I have but have not started. And she was talking about possibly starting this one in January. So I think I told her that if she starts it, I will jump on the bandwagon and start this with her as well. And I think Dina from Sit Stay Stitch is also starting this in January. And so I told her I might start it as well. So I think, like, if, you know, little FOMO, I'm going to do this. And then I'm still not 100% started on the fabric. I like stitching these on 32 count. Piece of paper went flying. I like stitching on 32 count. It's my comfort area. It doesn't quite fit on a fat quarter on 32. So I found this piece, and that's the little piece of paper that fell. This is Atomic Ranch, Pampas Reed 32 count Lugana, but I have a fat half. It's a very sort of pale pink salmon. And no, but it's not. So it's got a little bit more tone in it than you're seeing on the screen. That is one option. And then the other option, which I don't think I'm going to use when I have it, is Mushroom Stew from Oak Crown Studio. And this is a fat quarter, and I just don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable doing it on a fat quarter. Just some people can handle the margins. I cannot. And it's just I'm always afraid like that I've counted wrong, and I think about it, and then it's just not, because it's certainly not like a 3-inch border. So I also actually I think I like the Atomic Ranch fabric better. So I probably will end up using that, but I put both of those with the pattern, just in case I change my mind at the last minute. And then the last pattern that I might start in January it's a Teresa Wensler. I can't remember exactly which one I pulled out. I have a book that someone picked up at a charity shop for a very, very low price of a bunch of Teresa Winsler patterns. She gave it to me. She's like, she wouldn't take any money for it. She's like, I got this for so cheap. I'm not going to stitch it, but I, sort of save all the patterns type thing. So she passed it along to me, and I'm going to start one from there. That I think what will incentivize me to start that is if we, so Kitschy Whips Maggie and Amy from Fiber Arts Amy, they are hosting a retreat in October in Charlotte, the Queen City Stitch Retreat, and the featured designer is Teresa Winsler. And so I have done several Teresa Winslers in the past, and I gift them away to my nieces. And I finally got one of them to admit that she doesn't know where it is right now, but she's sure her parents have it somewhere. And that says to me it's not hanging on the wall in her bedroom anymore. If it's a lottery system for that. So you put your name in, and if in the first 24 hours, and then you do a lottery. So if my lucky number comes up, I can't guarantee I'll start it in January, but I will hopefully start it in soon if I am selected to go, because that will incentivize me. I feel like if you're going to a retreat with a designer, while that is certainly not the rule for her retreats, I kind of want to have something, at least started by that designer. Okay, so that is all of the stitching I have to show you. If that's all you're here for, thank you. I do have some acquisitions to show you. So the first one I want to show you is from Cottage Garden Sampling. This is the Northern Cardinal. This is fabulous. And this is part of the Year of the Woods too. And I get it from Grand Stitchery with the fancy floss. And we have Northern Cardinals here, so I think that's a lot of fun. I knew we had cardinals. I didn't know they were Northern Cardinals until actually called that until recently. This is obviously the male, so I am, because the females are much grayer or browner, I guess. I don't know, grazier. I don't know what they are. They're not as bright as the males. So love this one. I think many of us, when we saw that, were just our breath was taken away, just with the bird in flight and all of that. And then I did attend to the Jingle Ball, and so I picked up a few things from there. So I picked up the freebie from Primrose Cottage Stitches. So a little snowman and a snow globe. Dust to Snow from Lindy Stitches. I'm pretty sure that was not a freebie. I think I purchased that one. Also picked up from Lindy, and I just got all these digital downloads. Frosted Fawns. And now that I'm showing all these Lindy Stitches things, I realized I forgot to bring my FFO from her class. Hopefully I'll remember to bring it next month. But I did actually stitch and fully finish. She did it with a sewing machine. I did hand sewing. And then my last Lindy Stitches I bought, which to me was my favorite, Tree Guardians. So you can do whatever color fabric you want, but she did that, and it doesn't look quite right because my printer ink is not quite right. But like you can do it on like green fabric and have it sort of blend into your tree. My cats are actually pretty good about the Christmas tree and not climbing into it. They might go sit under it, which is surprising because my tortoiseshell, usually if there's something to get herself into, she gets herself into it. And then the other designer that I purchased from was the Blue Flower. So here's this Winter Phoenix. Again, you can't really, you can kind of see the head of the bird. Really, really pretty. This was she does a fundraiser every year for, I think it's her local wildlife animal rescue. And so this is, I'm sorry, I'm going to do it sideways so you can see them better. The cheetahs with the Christmas lights. And I love this. And there are people, I've seen people who've already stitched this up, and it's gorgeous. She did a really great job with it. So I don't know if it's still available on her website or not. But what she does is she puts it up for a short period of time. It's her fundraiser. And then when it gets taken down, and then later in the year, she puts it back up, and you can just buy it as a regular pattern. And then I think I got her freebie, but I don't have, yeah, I got a freebie from her, but I don't have there's no cover photo for it. So that is all I have to show you related to stitching. I'm saying thank you so much for being here. I have two books I want to tell you about and a little bit of life update. And so let me just jump into the two books. So I don't want to say I've just recently discovered NetGalley because I certainly knew NetGalley was around, but NetGalley is a site where publishers give their books to NetGalley and people sign up. It's all free. And you sign up and you go through all the books that are available and you say, I'd like to read this. And these are sort of what they call advanced reader copies. I think NetGalley, almost all of them, if you're getting a printed book, it's actually a digital book. They will put it on whether you want a Kindle or a Kobo, or they have an app you can read it through. It's not like a proper, like when you, like I read it on my Kindle, it's a PDF file. So it's a little bit different than if you have, the way you get it is different than you would like if you purchased a book, a Kindle book or a Kobo book or something. But basically, they are giving these books away for free in exchange for giving an honest review. And so I knew about it, but I was a little bit not hesitant to do it, but I wasn't really sure because they want publicity for the books, and I do post on Goodreads. Obviously, I talk about books here, but I don't really want, like, this is not a book channel. This is not BookTube. So anyhow, I decided to sign up. I said, "What is it? What does it hurt to try and see it?" And I thought, like, because people talk, like, you hear people, oh, well, I wanted to get this, but I got rejected. And I thought, I'm not someone with a huge platform. And literally the only public place I post is on Goodreads. And I signed up, and I would say, and it's not like NetGalley is sitting there and going through. I think it's the individual publishers are going through. And so I actually very quickly got approved for quite a few. I mean, I think I put initially in for 12, and I got approved very quickly for a bunch. And then like some other authors that I love, because I've started following a lot of authors. And so they said, oh, my book's on NetGalley. So I ran over there and see if I could get them and stuff. So I was out and out rejected for two. There were fantasy ones. You don't get explained to why. And that's fine. Like, I don't need, if I got everything that I put my name in for, I like all that stuff back there would not get read. So I'm okay with that. But I basically, I think I've been approved for like 6 or 8. And I decided I'm going to read them like in the order in which they are going to be published, not necessarily the order in which I'm approved, except for the first one. So let me tell you about the two books that I read. I enjoyed both of them. I gave them each 4 stars. The first one is It Girl by Alison Pataki. It's historical fiction. It takes place like at the turn of the 20th century, late 1800s, early 1900s. It is historical fiction. The lead character, who is a fictional character, but is based very loosely on Evelyn Nesbit, who was sort of a showgirl, who came from a very impoverished background and basically started off as a models artist and then transitioned into being a showgirl and became sort of very beautiful and became the talk of the town and had all these rich men vying for her, and sort of what happened with her life. And there was this, in her life, there was a very dramatic thing where I can't remember if it was her ex-lover shot her husband or her husband shot her ex-lover. I can't remember. Like, that's not what the book is about. So sort of inspired by that, to the point that the character in the book is named Evelyn, although she has a different last name. And it just sort of follows, her start near Pittsburgh, moving to Philadelphia, and then ultimately ending up in New York, and follows that. And I will say, one of my criticisms of the book is like, it starts off with a flashback. So there's like a newspaper, the media is covering that Evelyn has been shot. So from the very beginning, they're reporting on her death, and like something really, so there's going to be drama and something traumatic, and they sort of hint and are in the thing that there's the vying between these two men. But this is leading up to that. I will say, because of that, the first 50% sort of building up her background, it's very well written, great character development, but it's sort of, there is no conflict. Like there's, I mean, yes, she's poor, but it's not like she's scrambling and she, has what she thinks is a big break and something bad happens. It's like just sort of a slow, steady upward climb. And I don't like, so I thought, okay, when is something actually going to happen? That sort of climax or the drama that you expect. And you can start to see it. I will say there was one scene, and this allegedly happened in the life of the real Evelyn Nesbit, which is why it's in the book. It's handled very well in the book, but it isn't. There's a sexual assault, and it is not in any way detailed, but it is absolutely horrific. Like just even alluding to it, like you're reading this and like you see what's going to happen, and you're just like, this is horrible. So I will say, if you choose to read this book, that is a trigger warning that you have to be aware that this like really horrible thing happens. And it's handled gently, but assault is never gentle, if that makes sense. Like you're not getting some really graphic, horrible, like this is like, that's not what the point of it is. But like this event sort of shapes a lot of things later and it has to be alluded to. So that was the only thing, but I enjoyed it. I had never read anything by Alison Pataki, but I certainly knew her name. And so that was also the first book I was approved for in NetGalley, so it has a little special place in my heart. So if you like historical fiction, it comes out in March. I encourage you to read it. And then the second book that I read was The Shop on Hidden Lane, and this is a romantic suspense written by Jane Ann Krentz. She also has pen names Amanda Quick and Jane Castle, if you're familiar with those names. This is someone who has been a very prolific writer. She has been around for a very long time and writes a lot. My work at Friends of the Library, my volunteer work at Friends of the Library, and I went in the romance section. Let me tell you, we have a lot of her books. She's been around for a long time. And she does, and I should say it's paranormal romantic suspense. And in this case, it's sort of psychic abilities, and just the ability to like feel energy and do all of that kind of stuff. Basically, it starts off and like these two families, the Harpers and the Wells, there's like a generations long feud between them, which you find out the genesis of it later in the book. It's not anything like eye-opening, it just is. But there's a pact that binds their families together. So there are times that they have to work together even if they don't like each other. And in typical fashion, one of the female lead, her aunt goes missing, as well as the uncle of a Wells. And so they have to join forces in order to track down what happened to their aunt and uncle. Like, were they murdered? Were they kidnapped? Did they go off and have a romantic interlude? Like, you don't know what happened, but you kind of know that something untoward has happened. And so it just follows them. I gave it 4 stars. I will say, like, the twists, this is not your typical thriller where the twists have you on the end of the seat, edge of your seat. I knew it was going to happen. But you know what? I was okay with that. The romance was great. The character development was great. It was a fun ride. As my husband likes to say, it is what was written on the tin. You know what's going to happen, but sometimes it's, just enjoying the trip and the ride. And I definitely did with that one. It's a very well written book. So that again is The Shop on Hidden Lane by Jane Ann Krentz. So those are the 2 books I have to talk to you about. And then just life update. Had a good December. In addition to the stitching, I would say the first couple weeks of the month were fairly quiet. And then for Christmas, my husband and I I went over to see my mother. She lives in a retirement community. She's in independent living, so she's totally able to get out and about. But they do host like a buffet luncheon on Christmas Eve, so I joined her there for that. She always invites us every year, and usually we say, why don't you come to our house? But this time I decided to go over there, so I went with her. And then my husband and I had a very, very quiet Christmas dinner. I just made roast chicken, very low key. A little bit of drama finding the chicken because of hers. I went on Christmas Eve, and the first grocery store I went to was totally out of roast chickens, and I had like this panic in me that I wasn't going to be able to get a whole chicken. But then the next store I went to had plenty of them, so I guess that one store just planned poorly. But anyhow, so we had a nice quiet Christmas, and we did that deliberately because my brother and his family came That's a couple days after Christmas. And it's my brother, his wife, and his two adult daughters who are in their early to mid 20s. And so I just had a really good time with them. Went out, ate too much food. I made dinner over here one night. We went to a Florida basketball game, which they won, which we knew they were going to win. They did actually win the national championship in 2025. So, well, some different players. It is, good coach, good team, fun to watch. And they were not playing a team. They played Dartmouth, so nothing against Dartmouth, but they're not sort of on the same level as the Gators. So that is all I have for you. Happy New Year. I'll see you again in 2026. Bye.